Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. I'm Tundu Abiola.
I'm Biola Alabi.
I'm Veronica Odeka. Welcome back.
Now to our guest. Adagbo Onoja is a former managing editor of The Nation, member, editorial board of Media Trust, and media advisor to the Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs from 1999 to 2003. Onoja was Secretary General, National Association of Nigerian Students from 1992 to 1994. He is now a lecturer in political science at Veritas University, Abuja, from where he will be joining us from the Arise studio in a moment. Look at the import of the postponed presidential election and related issues. Here in Lagos, we shall also be joined in a bit by public affairs analyst Biodun Showomi, who is also a journalist and a democratic civil rights activist. Showomi has a wide experience in analyzing issues of public interest and international affairs. Also here in our Lagos studio, we'll be having political scientist Omoshola Deji, who describes himself as a man with profound insight on politics and happenings in the polity. Omoshola Deji says he is a liberal-minded and detribalized Nigerian that owes no allegiance to any political party or interest group and believes he is proficient in foretelling the outcome of elections. Once again, Omoshola Deji, thank you and welcome back to our studio.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
And our guest in Abuja, thank you as well for joining us. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being back with us. We're going to start out with basically asking both of you, first of all, how you feel. We've talked about how we feel. Tundu has said she's outraged. Veronica said she's disappointed. I said I was sad by the postponement. We want to understand from you, when you woke up this morning, what was going through your minds when you heard about this postponement, and where do we go from here? I'm going to start with you, sir, in Abuja.
Well, I think there's some sort of confusion going on. Nobody has prepared himself or herself for what started coming out very early yesterday evening. And right now, we have moved quickly from speculation to actuality. And dealing with that is the issue on the table now. Because logistics, which is the principal reason given by INEC, the election management body, has different meanings for different actors and different stakeholders in the process. And right now, the contest is, that's where the contest is right now.
Thank you, Mr. Onoja. I wanted to know, how do you feel as a Nigerian?
Well, it's very disappointing. It's very upsetting that after everything that has been put in place, all the assurances they were giving and all the efforts ensuring a credible election, it's like the nation has been stood down once again, as it happened several years ago, which is like we haven't made much progress and we have to watch our steps. That signal is not something to ignore because of the massive nature of the electoral process in Nigeria. And secondly, how do we regain the confidence in the process? Now, this will require a lot of efforts to put right again. And I think by the end of the day, it's like starting all over to reassure everybody that the capability to conduct an acceptable election is on the table.
Thank you. We're going to come to you in the studio, Mr. Deji. You've been here before. You've talked about, we've talked about these elections before. This is something we've all been long awaiting to happen. Like Mr. Onoja said, he's also disappointed and doesn't know how the government is going to regain our confidence. Same question to you. We all woke up this morning to very troubling news about the postponement. How do you feel as a Nigerian? And like, once again, what does this mean for us as a nation?
Well, I'll pick it from two perspectives. One, it's better for the election to be postponed than for it to be inconclusive. Then the other perspective is we really don't have genuine reason for the postponement. When elections are postponed, there are always two reasons, told and untold. The told is what they come on air to tell you. The untold are the behind the scenes, which are likely chances of paving way for electoral fraud. But the told now is as a result of logistics problem, so they say. But how far have we gone? Are there no alternatives? This happened in 2011. This happened in 2015. This happened during the Edo governorship election. And it's repeating itself again now. Are we making any progress at all? And one of the reasons why we have this is because in Nigeria, we have strong men and weak institutions. The institutions are not functioning. And when you bring a strong man into a weak institution, you don't make the institution strong, you make the man weak. Because when the wrongs of the institution begin to tell on the capacity of the man, no matter how strong he is, he will be able to achieve little or nothing. So I am disappointed that this election is postponed because it has so many effects. The land and borders have been shut. There are people that want to party and make merry. What happens to somebody that is getting married next week, Saturday? What happens to somebody that wants to bury his or her parent? So we take decisions irrationally without considering the multiplier effect on the citizen, which is very wrong, which is unacceptable, which shouldn't be encouraged. But then, Nigeria is a society whereby, regardless of what you do, you don't face the consequence as long as you are in the right clique and you are doing the bidding of some certain people.
So rightfully said, you mentioned, and we've all clearly said it here, there have been several postponements. It seems to be a reoccurring thing that we're seeing that's happening every time there's an election for some cause. But the question is, where do we go from here? What happens now? We've identified that there is a consistency with the postponement of elections. Where do we go from here?
Well, where we have to go from here is to make sure, or probably to try and get things right. We should be improving in our electoral process, not a situation whereby we just postpone election at will. It tells on the mindset of the voters. There are people, I watched a report yesterday, and people in the north, they're traveling back. People from the east that are residing in the north are trying to go back because of the fear of violence. Now, do you expect such people to come back then, go again? We have foreign observers. We have foreign medias, people that have booked their flights. So do you expect them to sit down for that 1 week? No, we should start reasoning rightly. People are busy. Don't think everybody across the world that are interested in the Nigerian election are just one jobless people. No, it's wrong. So we just need to get things right so that we can project our nation the right way. Because Nigeria is a nation of imperfections. Expect that the electricity you are using to watch this program at home now won't go off and you'll be disappointed. Just expect that you want to get to somewhere in 5 minutes and the traffic will disappoint you. So if INEC too is now disappointing, then what is encouraging? Now, Nigeria is the world poverty capital. Look at the news. Is it that one kidnapping, bombing? These are what the international community are reading. No technological innovations, no new development. Other nations across the world are moving fast. They are moving ahead. They want to achieve great things. But we place so much politics. Now, look at this. A nation that finds it hard to pay minimum wage, a nation that finds it hard to settle lecturers, swiftly released billions, 240-something billion for this election. And at the end of the day, this is what the people get again. Nigerians don't have light, electricity, they don't have good roads, the basic amenities are either dysfunctional or non-existent, and at the end of the day, they still can't, you know, vote whoever they want. So you begin to ask yourself that what is really wrong? Because if you have people that are in position of authority to make things right, you are not doing us a favor. That's one thing we should get.
Yes.
Now, Nigerian citizens need to move from their level of orientation and move a little bit forward. When this politician, whether you are INEC chairman, whether you are a councillor, governor, when they are doing their duty, you don't over-celebrate someone for doing his or her duty. If a governor constructs a road now, you don't expect me to now come and stand in the sun because you want to commission a road. That's your job, to build the road. So you don't expect Nigerians to beg you when you have been provided all the things you need, when you have 4 years. So you don't now expect Nigerians, you don't put people on, you don't make people pass through unnecessary inconvenience. Now, the political parties now have to go back and campaign, whether they like it or not. Look at the cost implication of this. We are still complaining that our political system is too monetized. But now that the election has been postponed, all the jingles that they play on radio, TV, of course, you have to keep it running. And the radios and TVs won't run that for free. You know, so it's a sad development that could have been avoided. The reason for postponing this election is not a natural disaster. It's not like rain is falling all across Nigeria and maybe 10 states are flooded and people are dying. It's not like, you know, maybe earthquake or something. So we really need to step up.
There is no statutory backing for this postponement. But Mr. Onoja, I'd like to come to you. Mr. Deji has talked about the possible undisclosed reasons. We have disclosed and undisclosed reasons, and he's spoken of basically the contempt for the electorate and the continuing political campaigns. Already, swift on the heels of this postponement, there has been accusations and counter-accusations between APC and PDP, with both parties accusing the other of having a hand in this postponement or that it's to the benefit of the other party. What is your take on this? Who is most likely to benefit from this postponement, if anybody at all? Because we definitely know the electorate will not.
Well, I have no disagreement with the argument that the told and untold aspects of the claim. Logistics is a claim, it's a contention, it's an argument, and there will be counter-argument, and the countervailing positions could even emerge to be more credible, empirically verifiable kind of interventions. We don't know yet. Probably we'll know more at the end of the meeting today that it's supposed to hold at 2 o'clock. So it's looking at something to watch and to make deductions and inferences after that meeting. But when you mention the told and the untold, you are automatically going to the realm of power, the realm of claims, the realm of discourse. And at that level, we start looking at the contentions, the forces, the interests that are in contention over the meaning of logistics. So power is at stake. We don't know precisely which forces, which interests are in contention at the moment about the meaning of logistics, but we can make a conclusion that power play is unfolding. And Nigerians need to watch carefully to decode which forces are moving in which direction. It is from that the pattern of that contention that you can perceive, you can begin to imagine what lies in the future, in the immediate future, and the eventual conduct of the election and what it could probably produce. So there is no magic in this game. Power is involved. Whether one should go ahead and try to break down which powers are involved is a different matter. But I think once your takeoff point is that power is involved, then you are much closer to what's going on, because in itself, logistics does not mean anything. It could mean no electricity in a particular place, because we are told that up to 11:37 last night, some people were still trying to collect materials from central bank. And for some of the states that are very big, how do you start distributing materials between when you get to the states, that's from Abuja, and so these things have no precise meanings. The meanings are contextual. It depends on who is speaking. And to that extent, once we centralize power, we begin to get an idea of what exactly might be happening. They are not for technical reasons, they are not for empirical reasons, they are not for objective reasons. They are for subjective reasons. I think that's the best explanation too. And that's how you get an idea of what might be happening. As for precise indicators of what might be happening, I think we've passed this road before. Nigerians, they get into conflict, they get into stalemate very quickly, but they also have this capacity, very unique capacity, to get out. And I think the only reason they are able to do that is the diversity of voices that are heard. In that respect, it's still optimistic to conclude that by the middle of the week, we might be getting a clearer idea of what's likely to happen. In the end, the postponement might have positive outcomes, maybe have advantages. It could enable some stakeholders to clarify their positions, to strengthen their where they stand, and to enhance their capacity to compete in the election that is coming. So, this competition is just unfolding. We cannot predict. The danger points are very clear, but also danger is the other side of something else, and so it's still a bit confusing. I don't know how it's going to play out eventually, but we need to be very careful, absolutely very careful. Power is involved. Which power will vanquish? Which one will triumph? We don't know yet.
Do you have any forecast at this point of who stands to benefit the most from this situation?
Across nations, most especially undeveloped democracies, when elections are postponed, oftentimes it's based on the influence of the incumbent. If you look at the 2015 scenario, if you look at 2011, if you look at the argument for the Edo election, and if you look at this very carefully, definitely the incumbent stands to benefit most based on the kind of governance we run.
Upon how we are able to bring all the voices to the table and to reach a consensus very quickly. Otherwise, the question of winners and losers could be it could be of imponderable proportions.
Sorry, give us 1 minute. Okay. I think Mr. Onoja, just give us a minute to talk to Mr. Deji in the studio. Please continue.
So now that there is a lot of imperfection in the system and the way we politicize everything, it makes people lose confidence to act right. Because if the CGM, for example, is removed in such a manner, now other people will need, to be very cautious when they are acting. They can't operate effectively based on some contending forces. So for me, it's something we must discuss. We still have a long way to go.
My next question, Mr. Onoja, I'm going to come to you in Abuja. I think that when we looked at the build-up to these elections, looked at the build-up to these elections, and the fact that people were out there getting their PVCs, there's an increased number in the number of registered voters from last election to this election by over 20 million people. What do you say, and how do you think that these elections have changed the electorate in Nigeria?
I'm not too sure there has been a fundamental change. I think people have, for some reasons, become very active in terms of the consciousness to participate, to vote. They have, locked a lot of hope in the power of the PVC to make change possible, the kind of change they have. But of course, Nigeria is too diverse. There is no consensus on the direction of the change. So the activism that has been associated, that can be observed in terms of interest in voting or collecting PVC, might not necessarily translate to any fundamental changes in orientation or in the outcome at the end of the day. Because we started with ethnicizing candidates, and now all the candidates are basically the same identity. So what happened? So what did the conscientization that occurred along the line, what did it happen? So I'm not too sure the activism, the consciousness with PVCs and so on was going to translate fundamentally to anything. I still think that elite consensus on where Nigeria should be heading is still more primary than the mass awareness and instrumentalist conception of the PVC.
Just to be more specific, in 2015 there were 68.8 million registered voters. In 2019 we have 84 million voters. Most of those voters are going to be young people. Do you believe that anything has fundamentally changed in the electorate from 2015 to 2019? Mr. Onoja says he doesn't believe anything has fundamentally changed. I'd like to get your opinion on that.
Well, what has changed is the political consciousness. People are more politically conscious than they are in 2015, 1999, 2030. Before, some people are being begged to occupy political offices, but now people want to kill themselves to become just a councillor. Because Nigerians were able to use their vote to sack an incumbent in 2015. Majority of those Nigerians still believes that they can still do that again. That if they vote, they can still sack any incumbent. So a lot has changed in terms of our political consciousness. But the problem is our political consciousness is rising, but our political culture is stagnant. We are not moving. Political consciousness and political culture has to move side by side. But we are very conscious, but then our democratic process is still largely undeveloped. What stops us? If other African nations can have this voter's card that you don't need to be present at a particular polling unit for you to vote. You can register anywhere and vote. You can register in Lagos during registration, and maybe during election time, you find yourself in Zamfara. You can vote. What stops us from having that? So we have a lot of, I think we have so many changes in terms of political consciousness, but in terms of our political culture, the development of the democratic process, we've not really progressed. I won't say we've retrogressed, but we've not really made much progress at all.
Thank you. I mean, you said we've stagnated, and I guess that means there's a long way to go, and today is an evidence of that.
Yes, I wanted to ask both guests today, but I'll start with Deji in the studio. Based on voting behavior, we know that, like you mentioned earlier, sometimes it's better to have a postponement than to have an inconclusive election. With the voting behavior, we have seen that education has been affected greatly across the board. A lot of children have been out of school because of this. People have gone to their areas of where they live to vote, and a lot of money has been spent in our economy because of this. Is there a positive that can come from this, whereby people are angered enough? Does this change voting behavior to where there is now a postponement and then people are outraged and then now definitely want their voices to be heard? Or do you think this challenges us and we take steps backward where people are now encouraged to believe in the system, that something can actually be done and their and their voice can actually be heard? I'll start with you.
This won't really change the voting mindset of the people. What it can only cause is voter apathy, whereby people are discouraged from voting. Because this election, there's been so much euphoria, like people are eager to cast their vote, and the pre-election season campaigns and all that. So people are anxious. But now, they've, killed that eagerness and anxiousness of the people. So at the end of the day, the election might hold, then there might be this low turnout. But that low turnout, the effect of that is it paves a very good way for rigging when voters do not turn out. And definitely when you postpone the election, it will. Now, what is stopping us as a nation from having this election on Monday or Tuesday? Why should it be Saturday? Because the thing is, the sensitive materials that have been distributed, now, this is on the part of the process now. For the people, there will be apathy. But on the process, the sensitive material that have been distributed, how do you monitor it? Let's be sincere and realistic. In a nation like Nigeria, whereby both candidates have their strongholds now, and you've distributed sensitive materials in some states, is the ruling and the opposition party going to be there to be monitoring it 24 hours a day? No. So, illogical and irresponsible postponement of election is a recipe for electoral fraud. Are you going to withdraw these sensitive materials now? No.
But we've seen it in 2015 where it was successful, because at the end of the day, even though it was postponed, we did still have a fair election.
Well, most people rated the 2015 election as successful because it gave the unexpected result.
It was the transition that made it successful, not the actual elections.
Once again, it's about that
It was a transition.
Yeah, it brought about the unexpected result. So the unexpected result made the populace and the international community, so that, okay, for this to have happened against an incumbent government in Nigeria, undeveloped democracy, for that to happen, definitely you won't want to look much further. You'll be like, okay, for this to work against the incumbent, that means this must have been largely credible.
Yes.
But we still have a lot to do.
So, Mr. Onoja, we move the same question to you. What is your take on this?
My take on, can you
Take
come
on,
again?
yes, your take on the voting factors, whereby now that the election has been postponed and a lot of people have been affected, do we look at it in a positive light that people might be angered enough to come out and vote at the particular time, or do we look at it as a step back and people will be relaxed and say they don't have any hope in the system?
Yeah, it could go both ways. It could generate more excitement. It could also become a lowdown for some of the voters, but it all depends on what the key stakeholders are up to. The PDP might say, okay, we're under pressure. The government, the incumbents are trying to use power or whatever, and they could try to appeal to their voters, their supporters to come out more than it could have even been if it had been held this Saturday. it could also go the other way around. The government could, start to feel the pressure, and it could also make more appeal to it. So it can go anywhere. I don't think it will critically change the voting consciousness of people. Normally, the average voter, those who actually vote, are a captive audience, so to say. They are not really in a position to, historically, they are not really in a position to decide and say, oh, we are not going anymore, we are tired, this postponement is rubbish, or we are cutting off. No, we don't have that voting community in Nigeria. What we have is maybe not a very good word to use, but we have a captured constituency of voters, those who actually vote, because majority of people don't vote. There's a certain fixed category of people who do vote, who participate in every elections, and they don't participate because they are politically, they've established a connection between citizenship and voting. No, that's not really true. Very small percentage of the population does that, but vast majority of those who actually vote vote at the jerk of the forces and interests that want them to vote one way or the other. So to that extent, I make the conclusion that it's not likely to, it's not really going to be the postponement in itself that will determine whether apathy will come in or not come in. What is likely to happen is the balance of forces, the way the forces are arrayed and the way they seize the initiative in terms of, okay, there is a postponement on the ground, what do we do, how they react to it, how they understand it, and the way they frame it, and how that will determine the practices, the responses that they will develop. I think that's what's going to happen. And as I said earlier, I'm sure by the middle of this week, of the week ahead, we are going to see patterns or indicators in that direction. So fundamentally, no, the voting may not be, affected as such. What may be affected, what may be troublesome, what may be problematic is how they frame it, how they understand it. Already, APC is saying this postponement is the handwork of PDP, that this is what they did when they were in power. That's what I read in the APC statement. PDP, on the other hand, is like, okay, this is a script coming from their own reading of what is unfolding, because they are seeing that they are going to be defeated, so they are amending the script. So this is what is coming out so far. How this is pushed around, how this is communicated, how sustainable it is, and so on, will become clearer as we move to the later part of today.
Mr. Onoja, I take your point about that small, relatively small nucleus of voters who will vote regardless and are sort of dancing to the puppet master's strings, as it were. But voter apathy is an issue. The 2011 elections had a 53% voter turnout. 2015 dropped to 43%. At this point, we might see a further decline in voter turnout. And that in itself affects the criteria of having a free and fair elections if the majority do not get to exercise their franchise. The INEC has had problems in the run-up to the elections with collection of PVCs they've had to extend. Do you think at this point INEC will have a further extension to sort of extend an olive branch to the electorate that they have so sorely mistreated?
My belief is that if today there is some consensus that a free and fair election is on the card, I believe all the parties who mobilize will add more strength in mobilizing their constituencies to vote, and the drop in the number of people who vote might not be substantial as to affect the credibility or otherwise of the election or the level of participation. I don't think that, I think that's what's, that's not, I'm not sure that's really something to worry about the proportion that, the drop that might occur as a result of disenchantment with the postponement. I don't think that's what will happen. What I am more concerned about is how will this thing be framed and understood by the key stakeholders? That the power contest unfolding now, how will it play out? as to enable us get back to conducting an election that the results will be acceptable not only to Nigerians but to other interests that are at stake.
Do you share Mr. Onoja's views that he's not concerned with the numbers? Do you share those views? And do you also think that INEC should further extend collection of PVCs?
Well, I'm concerned about the numbers in relation to apathy that this postponement can cause because of just one reason. If you look at the elections that have been conducted recently in Nigeria, the winning margin is always very low. So now, what says that the winning margin in this election cannot really be that amount of people that decide not to participate? If the election had been conducted to rich people, the amount, who says that that cannot be the winning margin? If both strong parties have the 25% criteria of states, now, if the winning margin is 50,000, just 50,000, does that mean that INEC would not declare the person leading by 50,000 the winner? Look at what happened in Osun. So we should be worried. So that worries me, because right now we don't have all this landslide victory. No. We don't have that. So that low winning margin is what really worries me.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that both major political parties at this particular time, instead of pointing fingers and accusing each other of being responsible for what has happened, do you think that they should be seizing the opportunity to try to mobilize people to effectively come out and vote?
You see, our political parties and the key players are very immature when it comes to playing the game of politics. What we focus on really is this calumny campaign, attacking. If you look at the campaigns of PDP and APC, they get to the venue, they use 40% of the time to dance, 10% of the time, 10% of the time to introduce themselves, His Excellency, Your Excellency, Your Excellency.
Protocol.
10% of the time to shout PDP, APC. Then the rest percent of the time, they use it in attacking themselves.
Yes.
And you begin to ask yourself, where are the programs?
Yes.
And I move a step further. I don't want the programs alone. I want the methodology at which you are going to achieve those things that you are saying. Don't tell me you would stop us to turn dollar to 1 naira. No, I'll ask you how. Not the what question. The what question is what the politicians are answering. If I ask you what, that means you just give me the bullet point, what. But if I ask you how, you take me through the process of achieving it.
Yes.
So that is what we should be moving into now.
That's what they should be seizing
They
during
should-
this time that we have.
They should be seen, not really this politics of attacking each
Yes.
other. It is disgraceful that at this point in time, something that has projected our nation in bad light has happened.
Yes.
And the ruling and opposition party will come and start attacking each other. Now, if it is the culture during the PDP era, what did the APC promise? Change. That's what they promised. So, where's the change now? It's still the same process. So, we shouldn't console ourselves with the failures of others when we fail. Else, we won't progress. So when the APC begin to console themselves with the failures of PDP, then we won't progress. There's no way we can progress, with that kind of attitude. So they should stop blaming. And why should they even attack themselves? They are not the umpire. INEC is the umpire. And rather than both of them to face INEC, that you have failed,
Yes.
you are not doing your responsibility right,
One
they
on
leave
one.
INEC that has failed
Yes.
and start attacking themselves.
It's
Why?
bizarre.
And
It's bizarre.
that is one problem we
scary.
have in governance too. Because when people overplay politics, when they play politics of bitterness and they like to attack themselves, they focus on decimating each other, not really delivering the dividends of democracy. And that's one factor undermining development in Nigeria.
Mr. Onoja, I want to pick up on what Omoshola was saying, which is really about INECs. And I want to go back to INEC's ineptitude in this and incompetency in this issue. INEC has cited a logistical issue. INEC has repeatedly not been able to deliver on our elections, either one way or another. Right now, INEC also has a history of being headed up or being led by academics. Is that really where the problem is? Is INEC more of a logistical issue that we need to solve, and therefore, do we need different type of experts leading that institution? What can we do to make this institution work? Because as it is today, it is not working for the electorate. It is unable to deliver PVCs. It is unable to make voting easy. The ease of voting should become a campaign issue in the future. Can you please help us shed some light on how does INEC become a stronger, effective, competent institution? And what recourse do we have as the electorate in this clearly display of incompetency?
Yeah, INEC cannot become any other thing other than the balance of forces in Nigeria. As an institution, as an election management body, it's a reflection of the tendencies that obtains in the larger society. Otherwise, in the last, since 2011, I think 2010 or so, INEC has been led by the best crop of academics. And not just academics, people who have engaged with policy. They are not politicians, but they have engaged with policy, and they have very deep insights. So Atahiru Jega is one of the top 10 political scientists in Nigeria. Professor Mahmoud has gone to some of the most reputable universities in Nigeria. He has been involved in policy across the country. So some of the political scientists there are the very best. There's a UN rapporteur there. There is a leading political scientist there. So as an institution, and then in terms of the composition of the human resources composition, fantastic. One of the best that you can get within the country. So I don't think their problem comes from the level or technical competence. I think their problem comes from the power play that I referred to. I mean, I'm not talking of power play in the sense of some hidden agenda. It's a theater for competition. It's a theater for stakeholders to try to enhance their bargaining power, to enhance their own position. INEC is to distribute certain goods, and that good is something that is of importance to people who want it. That's the elections and the election result. And the conduct of that gives INEC its own power. It is set up by a power, but it also exercises power. And the competition for the value that it exercises, that it produces, is where the problem is coming. I am very sure that logistics did not become a problem just yesterday night. I think logistics became a problem from as a discursive practice, as a practice that contending forces brought about, the competition between these forces and interests brought about. So INEC's problem is not lack of technical competence. That I don't think is the explanation for it.
Mr. Onoja, I'm sorry, I want to interrupt you. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. I want to ask you a question. And the question is, you're telling me that we have the best people there. You're also telling me that logistics did not become an issue overnight. There's a brand of soft drink that no matter what village I go to in Nigeria, I am able to get that drink, and it is able to be delivered to me very cold, in spite of the fact that we have no electricity across the country. If this brand of soft drink is able to get its drinks into every single place in the corners of this country, why can't we get PVCs delivered? Why can't we get elections conducted in a timely manner that they have been promised, if there is no incompetency, if these people are such great technocrats, but they might not be great at logistics, why can't we talk about that? Please, Mr. Onoja, address that.
Well, we can't talk about that in technical terms because if it is a question of, INEC has the best concentration of resources in terms of human beings. They don't just work with their staff. They have a pool of the most able professors in this country. And these are people who have worked with UN agencies and have the expertise. They are not just armchair activists. So, and then the array of civil societies that liaise with, so INEC is a contested terrain. And I think the balance of forces there in that contest that's producing this start and stop kind of image that it has got. So I stick to my argument that it has very little to do with technical lack of, a question of incompetence. I don't think that's what's happening. They can do, if they are left, if it is a society that there is a consensus about power, people not overemphasize, people not insisting that they must retain power, they must get second term, they must win back power, and so on and so forth, about minimums, then you would not have the kind of problems we are having. You might have one or two hitches there, and that will not be of the proportion we are having. That every 4 or 5 years, we come to face, my second there gave a list of elections that have to be stopped midway and so on and so forth. These are not problems of technical hitches. These are profoundly political problems. Disagreement, lack of consensus of even the minimum type in terms of the direction the country should be going. That's the problem. That's the fundamental thing.
Sorry,
all other
Mr.
things are subject to it. I may not give you. Yeah.
Onoja, what you're saying is basically that this cancellation is due to the interference by the incumbent. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily be interference by the incumbents. It could also be reaction to what the incumbents are perceived to be the direction the incumbent might have been perceived to be moving. It's possible. But what I'm comfortable with is that power is unfolding, power plays are unfolding, and it explains substantially what we are seeing. And I'm not making this up. If you put in context, you see a lot of activities in the last few days. What's all this surge for peace walks? What is it about? This is not the first time they are conducting elections in Nigeria. So why is search for peace so primary that all key actors, you need to listen to Patricia Scotland, the passion with which she delivered her speech at the signing of the second peace accord. So you begin to wonder, who is bringing the trouble? Where is the trouble coming from? And then the hypersensitivity to insinuations of interference. So the build-up is such that you can easily locate this as a continuum of what has been unfolding, particularly about this election.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to come to Omoshola Deji in the studio. You heard Mr. Onoja. He is saying that this is not an issue of incompetency. He is saying that the organization, INEC, the institution, is full of technocrats, academics. My question is this what we need now for INEC? And if not, what do we need to strengthen INEC?
Well, the situation is as a result of long-term and multiplier effect. Like I said earlier, when you bring strong men into institutions that have been incredibly weak for decades, they can't make the institution strong. The institution has already been so weak that it will make those men weak. There's a joke some time ago that any nation that is progressing, bring their president here, it will fail. during Obama era. They say Obama is a black man. Bring Obama down to Nigeria, we fail. Why? Because the system, the willingness to get things right is not there. So whether you like it or not, the professor of the INEC head, professor of political science, is just one man. The other heads there, maybe 10 or 20. These are just few people. What now happens to other people across boards? That's what happens in ministries, local governments. Now, the government is fighting corruption, but the government is fighting corruption among the ruling elite. What happens to corruption in the ministries, local governments, police stations? So this is what is happening in INEC too. The men are strong, they are intellectuals, but the environment is not, is not encouraging their intellectualism. It's weakening it because the willingness to get things right is not there. Then, let us look at research. Other climes, when things like this happen in 2011, 2015, you see other nations investing a lot in research. What makes this happen? Why did they postpone this election? The political scientists will gather and begin to make research. But the problem with Nigeria is our political scientists has gone political. They are running after political appointments. They have vested interest. So when the people that are to do research have even gone political, definitely it will affect the outcome of the research. Mind you, we are not a nation that invests so much in research. Now, even if we manage to invest in research, the results are out. Implementation is a problem. I take it further. Even if we manage to implement it, you will see one big man somewhere. We just pick up his phone and just make one mysterious phone call. Do like this, do this, do this, do this. That's final. That's the kind of society we have.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you
Okay,
again,
please do.
because I almost feel like we're not talking about what needs to be done to INEC as an institution. We're talking about the intellectuals. We're talking about the reasons this institution is weakened, but we're not talking about this is incompetency. The fact that an election that has been announced, that has been dated, that has been people have campaigned on, is not taking place today. And we're not saying that there is incompetency in INEC. We're not saying what needs to be happening to INEC. How can INEC be an institution in which this doesn't happen again? Yes, there are weak institutions in Nigeria, but INEC keeps on getting a pass. Why?
Well, people in position of authority that are responsible for this in sane society would have honorably resigned for failing. That should be the normal thing.
Thank you.
Because if they give you an assignment that do this, and you are unable to do it despite that the funds have been provided, despite the fact that there's no natural disaster, these things are man-made logistics. Are there no alternatives? Our politicians don't miss their campaigns, except if they deny them access to venue. But as any politician never miss their campaign, they go across the country with, helicopters. They've never missed their campaign. So if politicians are not missing their campaign, why should Nigerians now miss that right? That their birthright. Birthright.
Exactly.
Now, they've denied us right to constant electricity. We are not annoyed. They've denied us minimum wage. We are not annoyed. We
Decent healthcare.
Decent healthcare.
Education.
Decent education.
And you cannot provide for an election. Come on.
Now, my birthright to vote today now, you've denied me my birthright. Because it is an inalienable right. The Nigerians must vote. See, you cannot play politics or incompetency with the emotions of 180 million people. You can only do like that when you know that there's not going to be consequence. In nations where you know that when you do this, there is going to be serious consequence. By now, everybody would have been calling for your resignation as INEC chairman.
Exactly.
Everybody would have. When you know that,
We cannot
You know,
continue to make
you won't-
excuses
you
for
won't-
mediocrity.
Yes.
Just
This
to
is
add
the bottom
something,
line.
if you look at the broadcast the INEC chairman made yesterday, before the INEC chairman came on here, if you look at the relaxed nature of the people sitting on that high table, you know that we are not finished as a nation, but we are almost finished. Because when an emergency like that occurs and all of you on that high table have failed, then you come there, sit down, relax, pressing your phone as if you are looking at maybe Facebook or Twitter or something, and you are just relaxed for something that you have failed, that you've disappointed almost 200 million or 180 million.
But I want to
Nigerians.
talk about the point you made about Obama. If it comes to Nigeria, I thought that was funny. But the fact is that there's no mystical or mysterious reasons for any of that. The fact is, what you allow is what will continue. Nigerians are so willing to accept mediocrity. We have become used to it. We don't even feel that we deserve anymore, which is why you have this kind of impunity that you're describing, of chilling at this conference with your phone in your hand, as if there's no fire on the mountain. The house is on fire, and you're there relaxed. It's completely out of order. And to go to Biola's point, something needs to change. It's not satisfactory that, oh, your CV is so wonderful. Well, nobody's talking about the man's intellect. Nobody's talking about that. The fact is that you had one job. And INEC was changed to INEC in 1999. It used to be NEC. If they're so vulnerable to outside pressure, let's drop the I. Let's drop the independent. Then you're not independent. Something has to change.
Well, the situation we have in this country now, it will be will be a little bit difficult for INEC to really be independent per se, because and those are one of the things that ranks us as undeveloped. People will say we are developed. No. I rank Nigerian democracy as undeveloped democracy because I've been opportune to witness the election period in few countries, and you see the maturity. They don't shut their land borders and all the, they don't militarize the process.
They don't have peace
You hardly even
accords.
know.
They don't even have to have peace
You hardly
accords,
even
too.
know that the election is going on. They don't
Yes.
paste posters, the way we post it. They don't flood their, airways with jingles and all that. So we still have a long way to go. The process is not encouraging. And as it is right now, are we really ready to move forward? No. It is like a crime in Nigeria. It is a proof of not being strong for people to resign. No. People, on Saturday, if they postpone the election again, you still see people feeling relaxed. People don't resign in Nigeria.
No.
Whether they see it as a sign of weakness when they resign. Whereas the natural thing is when you are overwhelmed, when you are not allowed to do what you know how to do best,
Yes.
you naturally resign.
It's the honorable thing.
It's the honorable
And
thing.
we don't have that code
But
here.
now, Nigeria is being run by men that lacks that, that kind of like integrity to do the right thing.
So Mr. Onoja's point is valid, where he says that it is a power play struggle at the back end of it, at the end of the day, as opposed to INEC being independent to stand on their own and have the strength to move forward and make these elections work.
It's part of it, but then your willingness to do the right thing is also there. There's one thing about Nigeria. When the 2015 election was postponed, look at the way the military acted within that few weeks. Look at the military operation. Very brilliant. Then I was asking myself then that, what has been happening before now?
It showed that we can do it.
Yeah.
They said
But
6
the
weeks and they
unwillingness-
delivered in 6 weeks. Yes.
The unwillingness to do the right thing is just absolutely present. Go to institutions, ministries, universities. You see people that know their work. They will sit down, they will be looking, they won't attend to you fine. The unwillingness, because why? Because they know that it won't result into any consequence. But if Nigeria is a society of consequence, whereby the citizens will hold you accountable for every step you take, definitely we will be better off. But this situation whereby something happens, we just take it like that, you know, blame game. And do you know the problem? The problem is, go to the social media now. I've not checked it this one, but go to our fellow Nigerians arguing back and forth in favor of APC and PDP.
Yes.
Then you begin to wonder what is really wrong with us. You see somebody say, during your own party time, did you not postpone? Yeah. So what stops us from postponing too? You know, and that other one, with
so the
different irrational,
missing the entire
irrational argument. If Nigerians push for the right thing, definitely the right things will be done. Why is it that when Nigerians are in this country, they disobey traffic lights, but when you immediately you step out of the plane and you are abroad, you receive sense. Why?
Immediately.
Why? Because the system is working, our system is not working, and we are encouraging the wrongs in the system based on ethnic, religion, political, affiliation, lack of proper education. Education has a role. Then poverty too. When you are poor, your defense is weak. There's a little that you can, your resistance level is weak. That is why you see one man will sit down somewhere and we tell millions of people, go this way. And they will go because why? They know it is this man that will give them gari rice. They know that is where they collect their daily bread. So they go that way. Poverty, their defense is weak.
All right, we're running out of time, but we want to say thank you to you. We're going to go back to Abuja to Mr. Onoja and give you an opportunity for a last word before we go today.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to begin to go overdrive in defense of INEC or say something that could be understood as a defense of INEC. But I must make the point that I studied political science and I was taught by certain kind of people, and they are in INEC now. And I know their moral, their intellectual leadership qualities, and so on and so forth, under the worst of conditions. That's that. And I want to reassert my argument that we need to look at the fundamentals. Deji mentioned there the fact that a major campaign like this, electioneering campaign, took place, and none of the leading candidates mentioned a strategy of industrialization for Nigeria. Nobody mentioned the business model in a very serious and sustained sense of things. All you had are projectization, defense of projectization, isolated mention of the problems. Nobody talked about, okay, I want to create jobs. I'm going to create jobs. That's what they are all saying. What happened to the jobs in the first place? We didn't have that analysis. Yes, the PDP candidate came up with a booklet that says making Nigeria work again. That was the closest to a discourse of the Nigerian crisis. So the fundamental problem is that the elite have no sense of mission. As long as they don't have a sense of mission into which they will mobilize all the other segments of the society, we are going to continue to have problems. Even if you bring Obama, as he said. So we need to take note of that. We are not, this is a pre-industrial society. The orientation of the average person, apart from the few who are on top, is still open to mobilization. And the people who mobilize them are the elite, because in every society, the elite are the reservoir of merit. Now, if the elite doesn't have a consensus on where to take the nation to, that's where the problem should be located. Not at the, there are hitches here and there. There are things that you can improve at in the police, in INEC, in the military, in the universities, and so on and so forth. That is not where the fundamental problem is. And I want a situation whereby all of us who are intellectual workers, at every opportunity we have, we emphasize this point. I heard last week somewhere that the elite in the First Republic, in spite of their quarrel, they had a strategic vision. The collapse of the strategic vision with the coming of the military is what Nigeria is still inheriting. So right now, today, there is no document that has a discourse of Nigeria. This is what this is where the country is today. This is where it should be moving. These are what it requires. None of the parties have mentioned that. None of the leading candidates have mentioned that. We don't have research centers or think tanks that are articulating this thing and popularizing them. These are where our problems are. We have not formulated, we have not critically looked at our society, and we should begin to do that. Otherwise, the rain will continue to beat us. Yes, we are a pre-industrial society, we are undeveloped, our institutions don't work, and when you take even the most brilliant person there, he or she cannot perform. These are all correct. How do you get there? There is the primary and there is the secondary. We are overstating the secondary contradictions, how the institutions are not working, how the individual should resign. Those are secondary contradictions. What of the primary one? That's my last...
I'm going to stop you there and say thank you once again. I mean, I think that today has been really clear. We all woke up with a sense of disappointment, outrage, a disappointment again, and I think sadness. And I think that this is going to continue. We're going to continue to have these conversations, but hopefully we'll be able to, we have something to look forward to with the upcoming elections. Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning.